All right.
All right, good evening. This is the December 13th, 2018 Yellow Springs Board of Education meeting. We're getting a little bit of a late start because we've had some problems with the TV camera, but hopefully it's working. I'd like to welcome everybody and call to order. Roll call.
Aida?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
All right, moving into approval of minutes for our regular meeting that was on November 8th, 2018, a work session November 29th, 2018, and a special meeting of December 8th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
I have a question. It says you're absent and arrived 3 minutes after. What is that officially?
I have to do that because when I
Well, that's
called the
what I
roll,
mean.
you weren't here. So I have to note it in the minutes. Believe me, I almost cheated on that one. I couldn't do it.
And then doesn't it usually say, and then so-and-so arrived at whatever?
I did.
Yeah.
But it just, I understand where it's
gotcha.
coming from,
Yeah.
this whole 3 minutes.
Okay, any issues with any of those minutes besides that one? All right.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes. All right, I'd like to acknowledge the people present and ask you to sign in the tablet at the back of the room. And moving into communications, presentations and reports. 2.1 communications, there's a letter from Rebecca Eastman dated November 5th, 2018. There's a letter from Elizabeth
Lutz.
Lutz. Yeah, not Gallagher Warren. It comes in different ways, but okay, dated November 16th, 2018. A letter from Chelsea Early dated December 10th, 2018. Are there any members of the audience who would like to address the board?
Hi, yes. My name's Eli Hurwitz. I'm the president of the Yellow Springs Education Association, and thank you, Madam President, for letting me speak. I'm going to speak on 2 hats today, both as the president and as a teacher in the schools. I want to start with kind of a celebration of our teachers here as we end this year, because we're coming up on the end of the semester, we're coming up on the end of a lot of work that the teachers have done up to this point, which has led to some amazing work by our students. We have just had 2 amazing exhibition nights. We're preparing for the Sound of Music after 2 wonderful performances of different, now award-winning presentations by our students. Concerts, the School Forest Festival was this past couple weekends ago. It's really a great time for a break. Yet at the same time, we have a lot of teachers working on what's coming next. So we have the Day of Empowerment coming up, and in preparation going into the Day of Empowerment. And we have a whole other semester of school, which is going to be equally as tremendous. I want to recognize our teachers' hard work that went into all of that.
Yeah, exhibition nights
Here.
were fantastic, both of them.
I want to use a little bit of time to recognize both Harper Measure and Soule Chappelle for bringing some tremendous joy to our high school and middle school today with a pep rally to get ready for exams, which start tomorrow. Harper and Mark did a food drive that raised almost 500 items of food at the high school, while at the same time the elementary school was running another tremendous food drive here, which is really wonderful. The kids all do an amazing job. Mrs. Pettiford has it down to a science. It's really great. I want to note that next Monday are 2 really important meetings for our community. One is to introduce a course that we're going to be teaching next year, and by we, I get to teach a course I'm pretty excited about. It's AP Research, and there's been a notice out that people are invited to the meeting. It'll be open for seniors next year, and then theoretically tonight a trip is going to be approved for the spring of 2020, and there'll be a meeting about that trip as well. The AP research meeting will be at 7, and or at 6, and the trip about the meeting about the EF trip will be at 7 in the high school library.
And this is
both on Monday.
Monday the 17th.
The 17th.
Okay.
Yep. Both in the newspaper as well already, and on our Facebook and on our school website.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are moving into, typically into schools in action, but there's nothing. So 2.4 is administrative reports. Elementary principal, please.
Good evening.
Hey,
Hi.
nice tie.
Oh, thank you. So, lots of stuff has happened since the last board meeting. I believe, if I have my dates right, the Lion King performance happened after the last board meeting. So we had this, huge performance, orchestration of getting kids back and forth during the school day to the Robeson Center for a day of rehearsal, as well as a performance that happened during the day. We had a matinee and an evening performance, and I just feel like the biggest thing I feel right now is I wish that we had more time to celebrate the success of that production. And we're talking about how do we, maybe in January have a big cast party and kind of view the DVD that's being produced. Last night at exhibition night we had a clip of the intro that Joe Franny was able to show, and it was just amazing, and it brought back all those feelings, of just like, this is so wonderful, and so that was just a huge success, and really proud of it. And we're hoping to celebrate and reflect even further on it, because we went right into Thanksgiving break and then came back. Exhibition night was preparations for that, and so it's just a whirlwind really. So that was awesome. I was really proud of our exhibition night last night. For me, I think one of the things that really stands out is that I really saw this district goal of showing the process. We really want people to understand it's not just this, sparkly, amazing product at the end, that there's just a ton of work that goes into, PBL, project-based learning. And, in particular, I saw there were some focuses on writing in these projects, and kids were showing, like 7 or 8 drafts of, a narrative or a story that they'd written, and, and showing like all of the planning that went into it. I felt like first grade did a great job of showing their process, and kids were touring folks through all the different elements that led to their study about countries and families and different cultures. The 6th grade project, I heard we had visitors yesterday as well, and we had some 5th and 6th graders that were on a student panel, and one of the students that was on the panel was just saying it was a project about identity, and she was saying, I never really thought about my identity and who I am and what really makes me tick and who I want to be. And so it's just I think that we do really well of having really solid standards in our projects, having a great process of putting kids out front. So I felt really good about it. We came into today feeling tired. Everybody's kind of dragging around, and then still have another school day tomorrow. But I think there's that sense of accomplishment, which is really awesome. So teachers did wonderfully. The kids did an amazing job. So yeah, that's what's been happening, and then we're kind of projecting into January and just a few things that are coming up. I'm really excited about leading staff through some more in-depth studies about social emotional learning, which was something that we started at the beginning of the year, and we've been touching base and talking about it and how that impacts our instruction. But we're going to do a deeper dive as a staff, and then also be able to model some really more intricate PBL planning through that process, and do some training as well as learning about social emotional learning. And Jack's doing that with his staff as well, so that's going to be really cool. I'm excited about that. Speaking of the Day of Empowerment, we're going to have our first during the school day of empowerment. Rather than having boys and girls night in the evening, we're going to pull it into the school day for all our 4th through 6th graders. So that's going to be really powerful, and I'm excited to kind of, work with the middle school and high school on things that they've done in the past, and kind of had a group meeting where we're sharing resources and the team is working together. So I just see a lot of really important learning ahead, and I'm excited about it. So.
Well, I would say that exhibition night was fantastic yesterday. I mean, everything is just getting so much more organized. We used to walk in and feel sort of overwhelmed because there was so much activity and flurry of people, and you walk into a room and first grade, you had to wait to get a little tour, and you were in a little group, and your tour guide took you from station to station. These first graders were quite eloquent. I ended up sort of being a little slow with my tour and group, and ended up in somebody else's briefly. And I was impressed with both the leaders and what they were talking about and what they learned about their countries and their culture and so on. And then the Who Am I? I mean, that was really, really an intricate process around each person. Created a poem about themselves. They created like a collage about how they identified with themselves and what was important to them. And then they wrote something. It was like really an in-depth sort of thing. And so I guess I just want to appreciate that, and sort of, I was able to really take it in a really, really different way last night. I mean, it's been improving all along, and last night I just felt like I think it's, really there, and I know things get shaped differently depending on the projects and stuff, but it was very, very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like good attendance too.
I think so. It's a whirlwind,
Yeah. All right.
All right, a couple updates. First one is the Bulldog Theater Festival. We ran 2 shows this year, Girls Like That and Romeo and Juliet. We've talked about both those. But we found out since the last meeting that both shows got invited to state, which is quite an accomplishment for any school to have 2 shows go, but especially for a school our size, to send 2 shows. And uniquely, Girls Like That got invited as a full run. And then on top of getting invited as a full run, they actually are bending their rules to allow the mothers that participated to come and do that as well. So they typically have a rule that they only allow students, but because of the artistic impact of having the mothers there, they thought that it was important that they get to participate as well. So Girls Like That is going to be a full run. Romeo and Juliet will be a 45-minute cut. And then a really interesting twist out of that is Lori Sparrow-Knapp and Kate Lohmeyer are now working together, and in the second semester our high school health classes will be pairing with Girls Like That, and our high school health classes will be looking at the impacts of screen time on students as far as mental health, kind of all different impacts around health. And then they're going to partner with Girls Like That, and they're going to try to take this show on the road and do like workshops in other schools where the schools get to see Girls Like That and then also learn about the different impacts. So it's really, and this is, I think, one of the most passion-led projects I've seen from teachers that are just really passionate about the topic and being able to take their passions and help the kids explore those things. So,
Jeff, can I just,
yes.
when is that actually all going to happen? Do you have a date yet?
The project will start second semester.
No, I'm sorry, I meant the state competition.
I believe it's end of March, yes.
End of March, okay.
And Girls Like That, well actually both shows are going to be continuing to run. They're going to try to run like once a month. So Girls Like That actually ran at the Foundry last night, not as like a public showing because it's the first one they've had in a couple weeks obviously, but they're trying to look strategically at like placing one show a month or shows 2 times like back to back each month so that our kids stay sharp, but they're thinking that they can keep our kids sharp and ready for state by doing this project and going out and really helping communicate the topics, the important topics presented at Girls Like That. So the second thing that we have been working on is gender equity in sports. So that's a big topic that Mr. Baker has really been heading up, and some changes to this fall. We worked with our soccer coaches, and there weren't a lot of visible changes this fall, but there were a lot of things that took place behind the scenes. So like our senior girls got their own senior night this year, and that was the first time in years that they've had senior night where they got their own game. They didn't play before the boys. we moved some of their games from like 5:30 starts to 7 o'clock starts, so they got to play under the lights. And then we also implemented a rotation for our homecoming games. So every other year, our girls will play the primetime game for homecoming instead of the tradition of the girls play first and the boys play second. So it's the idea that we're really trying to flip these traditions upside down and do what's right for the sake of all of our students. And so this year in basketball, other changes. So we have our cheerleaders are cheering at our 10 or at our 11 home girls varsity basketball games. So that's a really exciting change because traditionally high school girls games, especially small schools, they do not have cheerleaders at those games. So our cheerleaders were really excited to do it. I went to the first game of the season where our girls cheered, and just the atmosphere was completely different. So that's an exciting change, and then we're also working to move more of our girls' games to prime time where they're getting to play Friday night games, Saturday night games, instead of playing Saturday afternoon or just, I think they play Monday, Thursday typically. So it's really trying to take some of those traditions and flip them so that our kids are seeing equity. So it's not boys first, girls second. So
You have to work with the other schools to do that?
what's that?
You have to work with the other schools to do
We
that?
do, and I mean there are some challenges like
Yeah.
with like sports. We have contracts, and then once dates are agreed upon, if we're going to make changes, the other schools have to have those dates open, and they have to agree to make the changes. So I mean it's not necessarily something that can happen really easily or really quickly. But the idea that it's a focus now, so like all of our games for next year are being scheduled right now. So as we're scheduling them that way so that we don't have to flip them in the future. So we're flipping what we can flip now, but we're also scheduling with all that in mind for the future. So
Great.
last week we had our senior citizen luncheon. It was our 38th annual, and it was very, very well attended. I think it was the largest attendance that I've seen in years and years. And I guess I want to thank all of our people who organized that and help with that, but then also thank our seniors and want to continue to build that relationship with our seniors. So Lori Sparrow-Knapp has done a lot in her class to build that partnership with our seniors. And I guess I just want to encourage all of our teachers and also our seniors in town to keep wanting to work together. And we love having our seniors in our school. So, and then the last thing I want to talk about our quarterly counselor meetings. So this is something that Shannon Morano started this year. So we did one on November 1st where we focused on like sexual harassment and sexual assault. And then this week we held our second one where Rachel Miller from Family Solutions and TCN came in and presented about cell phone and social media safety. And then we have one coming up next month that's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And it's going to be talking about drugs, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, which is it's a challenge for kids 7, 12 across the country. But they bring in like a whole bedroom, like mock bedroom, and they show you all the different places that kids are hiding stuff that you wouldn't suspect. So it's just really talking about, as parents, how to not be blind to what our students are doing. So, and that's on January 15th. And our first 2 sessions, we had around 20 families for each session. So it's something we're bringing the families in, we're inviting the families in because this is a problem we see in the schools, and it's a problem that we want the community support to where we are working side by side combating this problem. So all families K-12 are invited January 15th to our library for that event. Thank you.
And the meeting on Tuesday, so we were a little disappointed at the crowd, we were hoping for a lot more because we were talking about internet safety and things like sexting and what's really important, and I think it's probably one of the largest problems we have in our school, if not number one. And so we think it's really important for parents to be aware of what their children are doing in Yellow Springs specifically and make choices as parents accordingly, because I think a lot of things are happening that parents are very much unaware of with their children and their use of technology. And so we were hoping we'd get a lot more, but we're going to post the notes from the meeting on the website and send them out to parents so they can have access to it. We were hoping to videotape it last night, that was our plan, but for whatever reason there was concern about the content being sort of more copyrighted in some ways. They felt like she needed to get approval from somebody else before we could reproduce it and send it somewhere else. So that was a fair issue, but we really need more parents to come to those in the future, and it's super important, valuable meeting time, and we hope that folks can come out moving forward. Or we can find another way to get the information out. So videotaping is a good idea, and we'll have to figure out how to do that for sure. It's a real question, so, and a concern.
Are you reaching out to local religious organizations and stuff to just get that out there to families?
I don't think we are.
Yeah.
Because that might be a, you know, especially when you're trying to reach families, that sometimes is a great route to take, just as an idea. All right, that's it, thank you.
Yeah, and any other
It's all very
ideas or
exciting.
suggestions, we want to know, because we are sort of perplexed at the moment. Sometimes we're a little too close to the problem to really understand how to solve it, and so.
Is it the same families in the first two sections?
Both
or
of
is
them were
it-
similar, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's like, I get through them.
Yeah, so that was part of our challenge, right? So. All right.
All right, thank you. Moving into the treasurer's report, financial report, please.
Okay, I'm going to start off putting down on Mario on the spot, but we received $4,034 for the Ohio School Safety Training Grant. It comes with some stipulations on how you're supposed to spend the money. This is something that all districts could have received if they made application for it, so we did make application for it, and I'll let Mario and Donna talk a little bit more about what we would like to use the money for.
I'll let Donna take this one.
So it's from the Ohio Attorney General's office, and it's mostly for training programs related to school safety. And there's a list of examples, but we're looking at doing the TSEP training, which is trauma event crisis intervention planning, to have a more formal team with more plans and maybe resources should anything happen. There's some protocols for crisis teams in school districts and pooling resources, but to have that added to our emergency management plan, safety plan. This is our review year. We thought it was a good fit. And Shannon Morano happens to be a trainer. She put on a training with some people at Greene County ESC, and some of us went to that. And so we're meeting on Monday at 3 o'clock to see kind of informational with staff from both buildings, and then we'll narrow down to decide how we want to do a team using that TSEP kind of outline plan for making these kinds of plans, and we'll use that to update a portion of our safety plan. And so the grant, we're not sure exactly how we're going to use it. We're going to decide. I'm watching, you know, in that process, we thought maybe for subs to do the meetings, or even for training materials, or to-go kits that, you know, some schools will get to-go kits for if you have emergency evacuations, and to organize some of the information you would need. So those were some of the ideas, but we're going to wait till we have the team to discuss that.
Okay. You have on the agenda the acceptance of the amounts and rates for your approval. This comes from the Greene County Auditor, and we approve amounts and rates twice a year usually. We approve it before April 1st in the spring, and that's usually with the rates that are going to be for that calendar year. And then we also have an update in December. They're letting us know what the rates are going to be for the next calendar year. So these will be based on the 2018 valuation and what the rates need to be to collect what each levy is supposed to.
I think I know what that means. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Are we talking the same thing?
Maybe.
So the way that it's done, and I go into a little more detail when I have new board members, because then I like to make sure that they understand how this works. But our bond retirement fund, I have to submit information to the county auditor's office to tell them what our principal and interest payments are going to be for that year. We also have fees associated with the tax collections that I have to pay. We don't really have any other revenue that comes into the bond retirement fund. So what they look at is what our cash balance is, what money we're going to need during the next calendar year and during the next fiscal year, and then they set the rate to collect as close to what we need as possible. Of course, it's always going to be a little bit over because they don't want to undercollect because we have to make those payments. But it's supposed to be as close as possible. And this is the one we're done paying in 2028, I believe, just to, you know, in thinking forward, because we're 10 years from that, at the end of the levy, when there's money left in there, we can move that like into a capital improvement fund or do something that has to be close to what the original bond was approved for, which was to add onto this building and to do some projects at the high school. It was all for capital improvements. But so at the time, we'll be able to move that money into something. Right now, we have about an extra $70-some thousand, which isn't bad. We've had this levy for quite a long time, so they must do a pretty good job at setting the rates so that we're collecting what we need. The permanent improvement levy, we collect around $138,000, and that rate is listed as 1.2, but that is the full rate. That is not the effective rate of what is actually being collected, because remember, right now we are at what we just renewed was 1.0096. I don't know what the rate is going to be next year, but I'm anticipating that it's going to be a little bit lower, because for the emergency levies, what the county auditor tries to do is set a rate that's going to bring in as close to $915,000 as possible and as close to $1,060,000 as possible, because those were voted in a dollar amount, not a rate. So he could put those rates on there, but he couldn't put the permanent improvement rate on there yet, because that's still being determined based on what the valuation is this year. So the emergency levy fund that was $915,000, that's our more recent one, that is lower than last year by 0.13 of a mil. And then our existing $1.06 million one that we've had for several years before that one is a little bit lower by 0.1. So we could be looking at the permanent improvement rate going down as well. So that's always a good thing for the taxpayers.
When do those ones come up? Those aren't permanent ones, right? Or are those?
We don't have, no, the only permanent levies that we have right now are the ones that go into that 20 mil floor.
Right.
It's like our bottom, and then these are all ones that need renewed.
Okay.
So we don't go on, we just did permanent improvement for 5 years, and then we go on 7 years from now for the next two, if I'm saying that right. 7 years from now for the next two levies. If you can find my treasurer's website, every time we have a change, well, I update it annually. It's a graph that shows when all of the levies are due and what amount they're collecting and what their rates are. So once I know the rates exactly for 2019 taxes, I will update that graph and put that back out there. So you always know when we're going to have a levy that needs to be renewed or replaced. Let's see, I am going to, now that we've collected all the cash for the fall, I'm going to be putting some money, moving it over to the Max Saver, because that's earning 2.31% interest, which is better than a lot of CDs are doing right now. And I have 2 CDs that are coming up this month, and so I'll probably turn those over again once they come due, and just turn them right around and do some other type of CD to sock that money away. We got 2 YSEE grants. One is a car drive away, Victoria Hitchcock at Mills Lawn, and one is opioid epidemic, Kevin Leidy at the high school. And I put the principals on notice that if they know anything about these grants, I'd like for them to talk about it. So Matt, if you want to.
Yeah, so the car drive away is this is actually the second year that 4th grade has focused on challenging us to let them go out of the building a ton and do just lots of field trips. It was kind of a push last year that we were, encouraging really, like we want our kids to get out of the building and learn and experience different things. And 4th grade took that on themselves to plan a lot of really great experiences for kids outside the building. So this is what this grant is supporting. It's supporting bus travel. It's supporting, things like entry, admission into places. And just a week ago or so, they went to the State House And they also went to, did they go to what was the other building they went to?
They just went to the State House and did a big tour of that, but they're.
No, but they went to another place in Columbus too, like another government building. So they
The
had-
Senate.
Huh?
They went to the State House and then the Senate building
Okay.
across the street.
So, and they, so they got to experience that, and there were some really cool things happening that day. Did you go, Steve?
What, to the State House?
Yeah,
No.
you look like you were like, oh yeah, I went to that.
Jaden told me about it, that's it. Yeah, I was trying to remember it, State House.
Yeah. So it's just a really, it's a great experience for fourth graders, and I'm glad they're doing it a second year.
In the high school one, the opioid epidemic, our 10th grade team began this year studying opioids and the opioid epidemic and solutions, like exploring ways different groups had attacked the opioid epidemic and like analyzed their approaches. But part of that project was to purchase books that I think followed different people who had struggled with it and like how they recovered from it, like what systems supported their recovery. And the grant was to purchase those books.
Because that was an exhibition night.
Yes, yep, that was the exception.
Steve?
Can I just ask a two steps backward question about some of these levies? You have probably explained this before, and so I apologize, but what is the rationale for levies that are fixed at dollar rates?
At dollar rates,
Because effectively, over the course of that means
we get
that
no
levy-
growth.
We
But
get no
the
growth.
benefit-
Well, in fact, but you get shrinkage, in a sense. Because if
Shrinkage
you-
of the millage rate if your property values are.
No, I'm sorry, but if we pass $1 million levy 5 years ago,
It's worth less.
it's worth less 5 years
Absolutely.
today than it
Yes,
was when we
that's
passed
part of
5
the
years ago.
problem.
Yeah,
With the emergency levies is, and this is why we have a higher cash carryover, because you don't want to put in there just what you need right now. You want to make sure it's going to last over time. We wanted it to last 10 years. That's where we came up with $915,000. But yes, you're exactly right. Basically, it stays that dollar amount forever. Those can't necessarily be changed.
do districts have the option of saying, in fact, what we want is a 1.2 mil levy, and we want...
No,
We do not have that option.
because once you do that, we are at that 20 mil floor,
Yeah.
and emergency levy rates do not get calculated into that 20 mil floor. If you do a 6.47 operating levy, that gets our next millage for the 20 mil floor would be 26.47. And then it would
And
go
then it
down,
goes
down,
down.
down. So we wouldn't even be getting $915,000.
It's such a crazy system.
It is
Yeah,
that's
like I
why
said-
Ohio is so critiqued, because
It's
it's
absurd.
nonsensical.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it seemed absurd to me, and I thought, well, clearly I don't understand this.
We've even
Yes, I understand
as
that.
treasurers asked, can you at least change the title emergency levy? Because people get so confused. Like, it wasn't at the time, it wasn't necessarily, it was an emergency when we needed the $915,000. But we probably didn't need a 915 at that time. We needed maybe 300, something like that, to get us through the year. But we looked at growth and where we're gonna be 5 and 10 years from now, and that's where the $915,000 came from. So when you go do an emergency levy, you're just basically saying you'll always get that $915,000 for the length of the levy. And you don't want to, when I first started Green In, what they have done is taken an emergency levy and they turned it into an operating levy, and they went off of the 20 mil floor. And then in my time there, we got factored back down to the 20 mil floor, so you basically lost all of that money.
Yeah.
So when you asked about
Ridiculous.
changing that, what's the response? I mean, like, what? I mean, you all are the professionals.
Oh, why won't they change that?
Yeah.
Just because it has its name and it has its definition, and I mean, it's called an emergency levy for current operating expenses, which seems so crazy to me. There should be like a bailout levy, or just I think that because they can't call it an operating levy, because that is what goes towards that 20 mil floor. So they give a different name for it. Did you have a question on what you had an epiphany on?
Oh, that's right, I forgot that.
I'll keep my epiphany to myself.
Oh.
Thank the Lord.
You wish you would have known. What you don't know might hurt you, Steve.
Bring the pain.
That's all I have to report on.
Anybody have anything else? No? Okay. Moving into the, thanks, Don. Moving into the adoption portion of the consent calendar for the finances, 3.2 through 3.3. Is there a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
All right, and I don't think we have any other discussion, right? Okay.
Okay, Steve
call.
one,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
TJ,
Yes.
Aida,
Yep.
Sylvia.
Yes. All right, superintendent's report, the recommendations.
Okay, there are a number of things that I just want to talk about, but I think a lot of it's already been discussed, so I'm just going to go through it relatively quickly, I think. So, relatively is a key word. So facilities update, just quickly, the board already knows a lot of this, but I'm going to share it, for the community here, at least what we've been talking about. Number one is we're really working on finding a facilitator to facilitate a committee, a task force of community members to really drive the work forward around this facilities project and start again, kind of click the reset button and start again from scratch, trying to determine, number one, what do we want our schools to be, what kind of schools are necessary to meet those needs that we want for our schools, and then where are our schools relative to where they need to be to really meet the needs of our schools for the future. And then, doing a second assessment is going to be part of that work as well. But we need to hire a facilitator to work with this committee of community members. We're making a concerted effort to make sure we find community members that are both people who were supportive of the last school levy and people who were against the last school levy, and we're trying to get a fair balance of those individuals. But making sure that those individuals are also people who are willing to come to the middle and have an interest in working towards compromise and really finding some real solutions for the entire community. And representatives from different demographic groups throughout the community, and including folks like students, teachers, and parents as well. And the difference in what we've really talked about in terms of committee membership is having sort of 3 to 4 ex officio members as part of that committee. So one would be an administrator, which would probably be myself as superintendent. The treasurer could be an ex officio member of that committee. A board member being an ex officio of that committee, and finally an architect being a member of that. So by ex officio, I'm not really defining it, that's probably not the best term for it. It's definitely ex officio in that there's no voting rights, if you will. It's even more so ex officio in that our job is really going to be to support the committee with whatever they need. So we're not going to be there, the ex officio members, giving lots of feedback or interjecting any input necessarily into that process. But in fact, we're going to listen and hear what the committee has to say, and if they need anything like information about buildings, things, they would ask the architect would get that for them. If they need something that is related to administration, then I can help with that. Board member can be the conduit between the school board and the committee that can kind of bring information back and forth between the two, and then Don can obviously provide the financials to support them as well. I think with all of that together, they should have the resources they need as a committee to do the work that needs to be done to really come to a real resolution about our facilities. So that's the facilitator. And I guess I talked a little bit about the committee members as well. In addition to that, we are working on a few assessments. I'm finally making some progress on this assessment idea. We have a company called Fanning and Howie that does a full high-quality assessment of the schools, and it will look at not just the pure nuts and bolts building and grounds issues needed for facilities, but also the educational adequacy component of these facilities. And so they'll be able to assess both. We also have asked for a long-term maintenance plan. We've asked for the difference in costs between how much would it cost if we did some very basic renovations, how much would it cost to really renovate even for educational adequacy, and then how much would it cost to really build new. So sort of all of the factors we've looked at, and when we talk about building new, how much for a K-12, how much for building two new separate facilities, and then So they're doing all of this work, and then they're going to present it, and we were very clear to them also that we wanted their independent opinion, independent of the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission assessment, and we didn't want that to have any influence over what they come up with. And then that'll give the committee a chance to look at both reports and compare and contrast and make decisions accordingly based on what the results turn out to be.
I think on the preliminary stuff that you sent us, the look was they were also going to be able to provide an assessment of costs long-term of either doing nothing or doing something minimal, because I think that's important to capture. And it's hard to capture, like how much are we going to spend on maintenance, like the 200K we might have to spend on our roofs just for the shoebox over the next, which I mean, that sort of thing needs to be factored in, I think, and shown to the community, because that's an important piece going forward of how much, what the differences are. I mean, you're paying a lot up front, but you gain some of that back over the years because of the reduced maintenance and other things that I think that really has to be at least a portion of that assessment.
The long-term cost of doing nothing, you know, or doing very little.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not free to do nothing, actually.
That's right.
And that's the thing that we need to get. And what is that? I mean, having an assessment, an honest assessment and presenting that, I think would be huge.
Yeah.
You were going over committee members and you didn't mention seniors. And that was one thing that I read over all of the different. And that was a group that felt very overlooked in the discussion. So I just suggest
Point out that that was part of
over that committee. Yeah, if I didn't hear that.
No, it is on the list, but Mario didn't list it. I noticed that too, yeah.
I'd say, well, I thought I read it, but I didn't hear you say it, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I think the seniors need to be a huge demographic as part of this process. And to me, we're looking for leaders in the community, especially senior leaders in the community that can really help us find a way forward. So yeah, they're part of that process too.
Gotcha, yeah, that's.
So that's it in terms of facilities.
And it's going to be costly. I mean,
Yeah,
making these
that's a great
investments is.
So right now, the best quote for everything we're looking for that we really want is basically $35,000 or $40,000 for an assessment. So that's a really expensive assessment. It's not that the top quote was actually $50,000, and they didn't really provide everything we wanted. So I think to get everything we looked for, right now it's $40,000. I'm in the process of trying to negotiate a lower rate. So we're working through that. We got a meeting scheduled next week, and that'll be part of that process. They've already tried to take some things out that might help us, that we might be able to reduce our costs with. But we're going to continue to work with them on that and try to strike up a real agreement. So I think it's important to know that this will probably be the last meeting where we have a lot of. I think my goal will be, unless the board wants to, my goal will be to go ahead and go forward with it, and I'll obviously share it with the board members in the interim, and share the final decision we're going to go with, and then move forward and sign off on it and get that started so they can start working on it. They predicted, 3 to 4 months in that recent timeline we saw. Yeah, it's kind of a long process, so it's going to take a while. And if you looked at the document they came up with like a 100-page sort of example, and it's pretty extensive, so super thorough. But I think that's probably what our community wants, a very thorough explanation of everything involved, and this is a big decision to make, and so I don't think they felt like the OFCC's work was thorough enough, and so hopefully we'll be able to get people what they want and what the community needs to be able to make a informed decision.
And also just in terms of cost, that doesn't include the facilitators.
Yeah, right, good point.
So I just want to be clear and transparent about that too.
Assessment report.
Yeah, that's just the report, and so
It's not the
the
process.
facility,
Right, and there's the process, and then the facilitator's going to do a report that ultimately goes to the board as a result of a recommendation from the committee as well, and so all of that's going to be part of it as well. And the facilitator's going to cost a pretty good amount of money as well. So the next thing is an update on a racial equity initiative. I just want to kind of give a brief update. Most of this folks already know, but so a lot of people don't. We did 2 workshops and trainings this year already around cultural competence, and both workshops have been great. I want to thank the OEA and Eli for making that connection to help us get that work. The last one was particularly powerful in my mind, and we are in a place where there's some questions. We're starting to have discussions about what's next, and what are we going to do going forward? And so we're sort of in that place where we're asking questions right now, and we don't have anything officially planned going forward for the staff, but things like looking at, explicitly looking at curriculum, forming curriculum committees to really incorporate diverse cultures within the curriculum intentionally, and maybe guaranteeing that as part of our curriculum K-12 would be an important part of the work. Starting to take a look at our grading practices and our protocols and our policies, and not necessarily board policies, but policies in terms of how we do things within the school buildings, and kind of taking a hard look at those from the lens of racial equity. And so that's all part of our work, and it's something we're going to continue working on over the next few months. The initial piece was kind of somewhat easier in many ways, because we're talking a lot about issues of equity and some of where the problems are, and educating our community and our teachers and our administrators about where educational equity lies and what the problems are. But the next step is harder, because now we have to do things differently, and we have to think about what we should be doing differently around this work. And that's a much harder thing to ask people to do, and so we have to start thinking about what we can do differently as a school district to help with that. So we're starting to have those discussions. In addition, we're still progressing with the grant to increase the diversity of making sure we have underrepresented groups more representative within our schools, and increasing the amount of candidates specifically of color within our all of our job searches. And so we're working with Wittenberg University still. I think we were able to, we think we came to an understanding that we can extend the grant so that it officially kicks in the fall. And so what that'll do is it'll give us time in the spring here to really market to Wittenberg students, really get out there and try to talk it up and see if we can get kids signed up and ready to go through the grant to work within our schools. So that's all very positive work. Third thing is Healthy Relationships Gender Equity Initiative, which is sort of another big cultural thing we're working on this year. So most of this was already talked about tonight. So Jack talked about the cheerleading. Great article in the paper, Carol. I thought it was well written, and we really appreciate it. That sort of positive press is really helpful about what happened, got the message out. Our hope is maybe Megan's working on trying to get the Dayton Daily to pick it up too, so we'll see if they can do that as well, and go from there. But if you haven't had a chance to see the paper, really great article written right below the fold, and it's a really powerful one about our kids in the cheerleading program. Super empowering when you read it. I think it's nice to see. We talked about the Day of Empowerment. I want to talk about the movies. So we saw Mask You Live In, I think, since our last meeting, right? Wow, what's happened in the past month? It's crazy. And we also saw Misrepresentation with our students. Really, both great films. A couple, so everybody here, I think, except for Eli, myself, and Jack, were part of these student groups where they broke up and did some work with kids and had some discussion afterwards. Jack and I worked with the sophomore boys, and that was really a lot of fun, and engaged with them after each of the films. But it was really interesting hearing the kids talk, and one of the things we keep hearing from kids is that they feel like they keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again. They feel like they keep hearing about the objectification of women and how we treat each other, and consent, and all of these things around sexual education. They feel like they've overheard it. A lot of kids do, and they keep telling us that. But like many things with teens, I think they need to hear things repeatedly over and over again, I think, to be able to kind of grow and learn from it. But I think what was different this time, though, was that they kind of felt that way after the Misrepresentation film. But when we saw The Mask You Live In, that presented some very different ideas to our students that they hadn't been told or hadn't necessarily heard. And that whole movie is really based on the premise, exploring the idea that masculine is sort of been presented by society as the absence of the feminine. And so how does that reality affect our schools, how kids interact, what we do, what happens to things we feminize then as males within our culture, and how do we treat them? And obviously it leads to significant sexism, patriarchy, and other major challenges and violence. And so it was a great great movie. The boys were really engaged, especially in it after the movie started. When we were homogeneously grouped, the kids were much, and this is also the case I think in the girls groups from what we heard, the kids were much more vocal and talkative. But once we heterogeneously grouped kids, inevitably it really just, the talk was a lot quieter. It was much harder to get comments out of kids and more honesty and feedback. And so that was a little bit of a challenge. Jack, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think our boys really identified with the masculine, and I think it was, like you said, it was something they hadn't seen before and hadn't thought about before. And I think even our female students were able to take a step back and realize some of the pressures that our boys face that they had never thought about. So I think that was really, I think our female students started to develop a bit of empathy for some of the challenges that our males face, and kind of what our societal expectations are around masculinity. So I think it was really powerful, and I really hope we get a lot of community members out to kind of join that discussion.
So that's the next thing. So it's Saturday at 2 p.m. We're going to show the Mask You Live In at Mills Lawn School right here. 2 weeks ago we showed misrepresentation. Again, we had about 20 people. But we really want people to come out to this movie on Saturday at 2 at Mills Lawn. It's a powerful film. We will have a student discussion afterwards. The student discussion after the first film was really great. It was a powerful discussion. We know people are busy in December, but this directly relates to the incidents that we've had in the past in our school district and our work moving forward. And we know that we can't do this as a school alone. We need support from the community. We need parents involved and active. And seeing this film is a great step in the right direction and talking to your kids about it. So we would encourage everyone to come from the entire community and be part of watching this movie. Last thing is the Deeper Learning Training Center. So we've had lots, just an update, we've had lots of visitors come from all over. We just recently had our third, just yesterday in fact, and we had about 12 people come yesterday to be here for exhibition. And then we had 2 others where we had 20 people really as well from all over the place. But Lakota Schools has really jumped on board, and they're a big school district down in the Cincinnati area. And so like the next 3 sessions we have 20 or so Lakota people coming over and over and over again. So it's really, really interesting. And I think we're sort of working through, and you can kind of clarify this for me, Stephanie, a group coming from out of state. I think Pennsylvania. What's the college? Allegheny College. And they're thinking about bringing up to 20 or something educators to come see what we're doing with project-based learning, and so
Local kids.
Yeah, so actually, that's the connection. I think it's Ian, is that right? Or?
Ian Schick and Polo went to Allegheny,
Yeah.
I think.
So Ian talked to his professors about project-based learning work, and they were sort of working together on it, and they became really interested in what we're doing, and that's how that connection was made. So it's pretty cool that one of our former students that's facilitating.
It's like missionary work. You send them out into the field and...
Yeah. So that's all I have for you.
Great, well,
That's
thanks
great.
for that update, because I wasn't sure how frequently we were having guests and stuff, so.
They're coming every exhibition night and every time they have a Labor Day. Except for the first 2, I think we're usually starting.
Every time there's a late
Every time.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah, so
exciting.
I'm predicting we probably already have enough paid people to have this year, right now, we're probably looking at another 100, maybe 150. So, please.
That's very cool.
It's a great opportunity for our students as well.
Yeah.
As far
great
as
practice.
tour guides and really having authentic conversations with adults that they do not know and are not familiar with. And it's something that I think for parents and even our teachers to get to see, it's just so powerful how composed our kids are and how well they speak. So it's really great.
Teachers really enjoy it as well.
Mm-hmm.
They get to be experts.
Right, they show
what
off.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, great. That's great. All right, moving into the administrative portion of the consent calendar, 4.2 through 4.4. A bunch of first readings of policies and second readings. And do you want to talk about the bowling coach?
I would like to, yeah. So, I can talk about bowling. This is a really good thing, actually.
Or should I do
We should do a
first and
motion.
second? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
first, motion, whatever. Sorry.
Second.
So moved.
So first and second, or you just your second?
Yeah, gosh, I know. I didn't mean to, I was just trying to.
She's trying to move it along, move it along. Okay, we got a first and a second, all right.
For a second?
No second.
All right. Sorry.
The bowling coach is a really interesting, and a good thing. Really, we have, so last year was the first year,
No.
the second year, right? How many did we have last year?
Oh, gosh, it was like 42, I mean, 40.
The first year was small,
Between 30 and
by
40.
year two, it was
Yeah.
pretty big, yeah.
So maybe I wasn't as aware of how big it was, but I know this year there are at least 30 kids, and I think the difference this year is we have enough to have a girls bowling team as well, and so that really complicates things in terms of scheduling and trying to figure out and make sure you can't be two places at once, which is been a real challenge, and it's going to be a real challenge, and so I think, so just kind of figuring this out, I think it's Matt Cole's been really hitting me up pretty hard for the past 2 years and hitting Nate up and Jack up about this, and we always said that if it grows to the point where we need to really do it, we'll do it. We'll add coaches, and so we're at the point where we need it now because these matches are starting to overlap here, and it's really challenging to coach that many kids at one time. So this is an assistant bowling coach for this year, approving that position. It could be that when we negotiate with the union in January or in the spring, that we negotiate potentially a girls bowling team instead of an assistant bowling coach. So we'll have to figure out what that looks like. Stipend, depending on what the numbers look like. But it could be that we have a girls and a boys coach sort of separate, or it could be we do a main coach and then an assistant. I mean, it depends how we want to work it out. I guess that'll be working with Nate and figuring out the best way to frame it. But for now, I think the best way to do it, because Matt's been running the program, is to hire an assistant and at least get through the season that way. And this matches up with Category 7, which is the same that the head bowling coach is under right now, and this Category 7 rate matches the same for assistant baseball and assistant softball coach within the contract. So once you approve this, then we can go ahead and hire the coach. I would probably have to emergency hire them over the next few days, but we have to post it and get, follow the contract, make sure we have a 7-day window, and then hire somebody after that and go from there. So that's the idea. And then we'll bring that person to the next meeting.
Okay. All right, so I guess we need roll call. There's no other questions? Okay.
Steve too?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
All right, personnel portion of the consent calendar, 4.5 through 4.6, and just, you see it on the, let me see where it says consent, right now. Okay, 4.5 through 4.6, is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, please.
So there's a lot, we've had several absences for varying reasons, illnesses or family illnesses or pregnancy, or you name it. There's been a lot of different things that have come up, and child care leave. And so these are just examples of some of those. And so Teresa Graham is an ex-teacher of ours who's been still pretty involved in terms of her work with YSCE, and I think she's actually still teaching in other ways too. She's done some work in STEM and that kind of thing. And so Jack feels very confident in Terry's work. He worked closely with her and kind of stepping in and helping us out through this time period. And so we're excited to have an experienced teacher to do that. And then Sheila Cruz, has been a kind of a steady sub for us and long-term sub for us for years. She's almost a professional long-term sub, and this is probably her third or fourth maybe?
Yeah, she's had
At least her third, I think.
long-term subbing positions.
Long-term sub positions for us. And so what this does though is it raises an issue in terms of our overall number of substitute teachers. And so our numbers are dwindling, and we are trying really hard to hire more subs. We even have an ad, I think, in the paper this week to see if we can get more. But the truth is we're sort of losing this battle. And so I think what's happened and what happens as a result is the staff at both buildings, and I see it more often at high school, the staff at both buildings end up having to send emails out to teachers saying, can you sub during your plan period? And our rates in the contract are $11 an hour to sub for one period. So I think that's something we probably need to talk about during the negotiations, and as something that comes up to match a little better what teachers we should be paying for that. But in addition to that, it's a major morale issue in the middle of the day to ask people to kind of sub. And people are doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but it's their plan time usually, which is super essential and important to their work. So our job is to get subs so that when people need them, we don't have to ask our teachers to sub additional bells, and we're not struggling with that right now. A couple years ago, we raised our sub rates to $90 an hour.
A day.
I did 90, I'm sorry, 90. I'm sorry about that. I signed up. Teachers are getting
So I can be a sub.
still a little bait and switch here. I get in the door and then, that was a mistake. It's actually $90 a day. Yeah, $90 a day. And but just in recent conversations with superintendents in Greene County, the race is on again. And so we have another area of the county has decided to raise it to $100. And so we are basically having to deal with this issue one more time. And it may be that we continue to have to do this. So I am really seriously looking at trying to potentially hire a sub-service that basically their entire job is they hire substitute teachers for districts. And then there's a pool that they put together, and then when we need teachers, they just send the subs we need, and they have a pretty high success rate because they're pooling resources essentially. They can have more subs in the pool, and that helps. Us being so small and out in Yellow Springs, people, for whatever reason, don't sign up to be subs here because there's a perception that we're out, far away or whatever. Steve?
How do we advertise for subs now? Like, are we going to colleges? Are we asking around to see who may have the time? I mean, like,
So
what are we doing
we
now?
do all of that, but I don't know if Stephanie wants to kind of chime in at all or, say anything around that, because that's part of your role, please.
We did reach out to pretty much all the local colleges and asked them to send stuff out to their grads or recent grads or grads who are graduating in December, letting them know it was a great way to get experience teaching.
Right.
So we did that. I think a lot of them sent it out to a lot of their different little pockets.
Are there places you can just get certifications? Like, is there, or is that?
So all you have to do is have a degree, and you have to go get a background checked and and stuff. And that all works through OD, but you just apply with the district, and the district helps you through that process.
Yes.
Getting certified, so it's pretty easy to
People-
do.
That's what I'm wondering, if there's
Yeah,
a
that's a
way
good
we
point.
could maybe, if people knew, maybe, is it that simple?
Yeah,
And-
but it's actually not that simple.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's that simple, but it's not simple.
Yeah, right, I bet
It's
it's,
not
And it-
really simple, yeah.
but I'm sure people would go through it if they knew that there might be a demand. And so I'm just wondering if we were,
Yeah, we tried,
Before
in
we
the
just
past,
start-
so this is not the first time we've had this problem, it's been every year for the past several years, and we've tried lots of different methods. So in the past, we've posted things on Facebook and all the social media to try to get people signed up. And that's usually worked to get us maybe one or two people, but that's really it. I'm concerned, I'm just worried that we might be defeated here, Steve.
Well, I mean, I
that's
guess,
why I'm asking to see if we've.
because it's not our problem alone.
Yeah, it's a huge issue
I
across the
think-
board in other places.
Yeah, it's not just the county.
It's an economic issue, I think.
Right.
The economy, the unemployment rates, never a problem 7 years ago, but it's
Right.
definitely a problem now. So, and the Career Center's already went with this, and they seem to have having pretty good success using this method. And so we're gonna talk to the same people the Career Center's using. The downside is it could cost us up to $15 more per sub than we're paying now. So when you think about that, that adds up quite a bit. 15 times an average of 5 out per day times 180 days a year. That's another $12,000, $13,000 a year we'll be paying in sub costs as a district to do this. So
But then the idea with that, if I'm understanding you correctly, is you're paying the premium to be assured much more often that you'll get a sub, and then everyone isn't doing the scramble to pull somebody from something else they're doing at work that day to go be a
exactly.
sub,
Yeah.
and all the problems that that causes.
Right, so all the administrative costs and time associated with all of that process, that Jack and the secretaries are using, that, Stephanie's doing, that Donna's doing, all of that is,
Well, may I ask how the service is used? Is it, do you call, hey, we need this week, or is it like, for the rest of the year, we may need this need?
it's
Is it
actually, we
contractual,
call
or
that
can
it's on
you
a
do-
day-to-day basis.
Got you, so if more people did, if we lucked out and 6 people people
Oh, I'm sorry.
decide to sign up.
I'm sorry, I see what you're saying, I didn't understand the question, now I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
think
are
it's,
we,
I think there's a contract, and I think
that's what I was
it's a,
wondering,
I
yeah.
don't know how many, what their minimum amount of, I imagine it's probably a year, an annual contract maybe, but maybe they want a long-term contract, I don't know, do you know anything about how that contract works? Steve, do you know? Okay, yeah.
We'll learn more next week.
Yeah, so we're meeting next week with 2 different firms to have more discussion around this.
And what you know so far from the Career Center, does it sound like they're happy with who they, so they can get more subs? Are they happy with the subs that they're getting?
I think so. I mean, that's what Dave and I have talked a few times about it. He feels pretty good about the service they're getting and what they're doing. I think if there's a sub that's not working, they can certainly just block that sub from coming back to that school, their school. That's an option for them, so,
Eva seemed happy when I talked to her about it.
yeah. What's that?
Eva seemed happy with it when I talked to her about it.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
I think she is happy with it, yeah.
And I think that's all I needed to share around this.
All right, so I guess we've got a roll call, huh?
If Mario's done.
Yeah, no.
Is Sheila's name, Sheila or Shelia?
So that is,
I'm just noticing this, is that
Is
spelled?
that what she spelled?
I think she does, she spells her name different, I'm relatively sure that's right.
Okay.
Not that important, I'll change the.
I may have missed it.
I think she does spell her name different though.
does it? Yeah.
Okay, roll call?
Well, yeah, no, I think I already knows about Olivia, but I can just share with the community. Basically, Olivia's going back to full-time status because what's happened is the open position that was created at halftime and was filled by Jen Clark, and that opened up Jen Clark's halftime position, so now Olivia's going to take over that entire full-time position again. So basically, we're no longer doing the job share for that role. We're back now to a full-time position, and Olivia's back to full-time.
Okay, good, thanks.
TJ,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes,
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
all right. Moving into board communications, 5.1, setting the date for the organizational meeting and budget hearing for January 2019. And, excuse me, January 2019, and the date is the 10th.
That's a Thursday? Yeah, that is
Yeah,
right.
that's a
Just to
Thursday.
make sure about that.
Yeah. And the start is at 6:30. And for that, we need to appoint a president pro tem for the organizational meeting. Anybody want to volunteer for that? That's a very brief assignment.
I think
Bueller?
Steve McQueen.
Okay with that? We'll train you, Steve.
It's not bad, it's very short.
It's very short.
All right, absolutely.
It's a brief moment of sort of power, go for it.
Exactly.
so was this your
Could derail the whole thing.
nomination?
Yes, that was my nomination.
Is there anyone who seconds?
Second.
Well,
One last chance, you can nominate somebody else.
Looks like hot potato.
Okay.
no, yeah, we did.
Roll call?
Aida,
I'm fine with, yeah.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Steve,
Do I have to vote for myself? Yes.
it would probably be better if you did.
Marx Brothers.
TJ,
Yes.
You don't have to.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, and then on that agenda for the organizational meeting, we talk about new board leadership, which is an ongoing consideration here, and then as well as reassignment or assignment of board committees. And
I put that out on the drive if you didn't.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I will just copy that over to the next meeting's drive again so that you have access to it.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that, by the way, that's always helpful to have that, just sort of as a reminder and so forth.
We're going back to 6:30, by the way.
Sorry?
So that's just for that meeting.
For that meeting, you gotcha, I just want to make sure.
And then we approve the calendar as well during that time.
Is that okay for you, Steve, for that date, the 6:30?
Yeah, no, it's just, I know there's one that the board sends out, and it stays the 7th, so that's why I was.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's the organizational meeting, which starts at 6:30, and then the regular meeting starts at 7.
Oh, gotcha, so
Yes.
there's, That's what I
When
would
you got
like to
sworn
make
in
clear.
last year, that was at 6:30.
Exactly, yeah, we have to, gotcha.
Okay, moving on to the Green County Career Center report.
Well, so because of the calendar, we had our December board meeting yesterday, and in December, we have the great holiday feast prepared by the students in the
that's
Culinary Arts
right.
program. I had a
That's why
lovely...
you do it.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, oh no, and I've made no bones about this. You know, if he started serving snacks at the meeting, my loyalties would shift, but there we are. I shared a lovely meal last night with Renee Hatter, and what's his name?
Jack?
John.
Yeah, that's right. Jim. It was a really lovely event. I do want to also just share with everybody, however, that it was the first board meeting we had after
yeah.
Bill Spar passed away. And Bill's funeral is in fact tomorrow. He'd served on the board for a quarter century at the Career Center and had been involved with schools in this area for over 40 years. And so it felt actually weird, I just have to say, just to have this meeting and Bill was not there. So we were all feeling a little sad about that. And for those that knew him, you know, he was just a great goofy presence and a wonderfully dedicated board member and advocate for education. And then, of course, the other big news is that the new building project proceeds quickly. Site remediation work is going to begin promptly. We're starting to get some, in fact, at the dinner last night, there were some preliminary renderings of what this building's going to actually look like on easels around the room. So that project is charging ahead. Yes. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be an extraordinary new building. It's going to be great for kids and great for the programs at the Career Center. So that's my GCCC report.
Great. All right, moving into other board member items. Anybody have anything? Well, I will report on that we all attended the OSBA conference in November. And portions of it, some of us were there the whole time, some of us were just there for portions of it. I think we'll see some changes in sort of meeting, changing up some meeting stuff because we got great tips and because we're going to consolidate some stuff that will help the agenda. Many of us attended facilities-oriented workshops. And so that will be helpful as well as some stuff around negotiations and what's kind of on the horizon with negotiations. So, it's a kind of a hit and miss sort of conference, depends on which breakout sessions you sort of sign up for, but I thought it was pretty incredible this year for me anyway, so.
Gina Davis was there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. And Steve got his picture with her. We needed to submit that picture and put it up here.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have
That should
been
go in the
really
photograph record.
fun.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. That's right, she was there. She was great.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
She was
George there too?
And we didn't know we had such a fan. And the other thing I want to do is I want to give a shout out and congratulations to Sean Creighton, who was a board member for 10 years. He's just been nominated the president of the New American Colleges and Universities, which is a national consortium of selective independent higher education institutions. And apparently they're dedicated to the integration of liberal education, professional studies, and civic engagement. So this is not just a role of for a president of the organization. He is actually the president of this, and he is quitting Sochi, and this will be his new job. So anyway, I want to give him a shout out.
Congratulations, Sean.
And they're not moving. They can stay in Dayton. So anyway, just kudos to Sean, and thank you for his service also. All right. Anybody else have anything? Where are we? The end of 2018. I cannot believe it. Wow. And thanks to everybody, all these amazingly hard-working, committed people.
Thank you.
Appreciate your dedication and ongoing support for our students and our community and our families, so, and these great board members.
You're here.
Yeah. All right,
Thank you all.
move to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yep.
Steve?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
All right. We are adjourned.
All